Alright, you guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. You already know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Also shout out the China Deep Dive, as once again, another video about China. The world's second largest economy? I think so. Anyway, even though these countries, these first world countries with these large economies, it's not enough for the millennials, let alone to make a living in the large cities with the opportunities to begin with. So let's tune in and see if coming to Beijing is even worth it. Like, if you're just looking for opportunities and trying to better yourself, is it worth you as a single person in their 30s to come?
If you haven't come to Beijing yet, I would advise you not to come. My name is Ai Yuan. I am 37 years old and I have been in Beijing for 7 years. If it weren't for the need to pay off my debts, I would have left the city with no happiness long ago.
And she's probably still there because being in Beijing, that's probably going to be the most money she'll be able to make to begin with, versus being out in the countryside where there's less opportunities. But once you get into debt, you're going to do whatever you can to pay that off.
Actually, you can't make much money by working in Beijing, and the salary in Beijing is really not as high as we assume. Most of them are $1,100.
Wow.
After deducting food, clothing, housing, and transportation, you can only have $280 left each month. Instead of staying here, it would be better to go back to your hometown, find a job easily, and stay.
And you're better off, when you move to these places, it's best not to have a car. It's kind of like when you move to New York, the first thing you're going to do is probably not to buy a car, because public transportation is better in those large cities, except for if you live in a place like LA. But yeah.
With your parents and friends. This way, life might be easier and happier. Beijing is a very competitive city. Almost everyone earns $1,100 a month for a workload equal to $3,000 and is often exploited by their bosses. If you don't want to do it, there are plenty of people who will do it, because there are many people in Beijing who can't find jobs now. I spent $400 to live in a small room of less than 10 square meters in Beijing, and I even have to count the seconds to go to the toilet. A bowl of spicy hot pot costs $5. If you want to rent a place in better condition, you have to accept a commute of nearly 2 hours one way daily.
And that's too much time wasted for the average person. So basically that's 4 hours that you spend traveling. That's a lot.
Such a Beijing, do you still want it?
你还想来吗？
The blogger is 31 years old and graduated from junior high school. She said she has been working hard in Beijing for 10 years.
刚来北京第一年，
I moved to Beijing. My first year's salary was $200. I lived in a dormitory with 12 people in one room.
So that's like a boarding house. And you work, there's people that make six figures and they still live with roommates. That's a little crazy. But then the goal is to save as much as you can. Like, there's people that make six figures and they're very frugal. They have roommates, their car's paid off, and their debt is just on point.
Men and women shared a bathroom. The rent was $30. I couldn't bear to buy a few sets of clothes in a year. No matter how careful I spent, I couldn't save any money. After buying the ticket to go home for the new year, I only had $120 left in my pocket. In the second year, I moved to a new store, and since I didn't have any stable customers, I went out to distribute flyers to find customers. For us who have no education, we can only do hard labor. Gradually, my salary became stable and I could get $1,000. Every time I got paid, I would deposit $280 into a card. I have been a Beijing drifter for so many years, and I have never been lazy and fond of play.
So that's the term of this. A Beijing drifter is somebody that moves to the city just to struggle, but they're willing to do the hard work to keep up with the pace. Versus somebody that's already in Beijing their whole life and they're lazy, and most of the jobs don't want to hire them. That's what we're getting at.
I go to bed after 1 o'clock almost every day.
Whoa.
I have devoted my youth to work, and whenever I have free time, I think about how to make more money. It's not that I love money so much, but I know clearly that no matter how big someone else's roof is, it's not as good as having your own umbrella.
You hear that? So even though people do want to save money by living with other people, at the end of the day, they want their own space. And as an adult, you should have your own space. A space where you can get away from reality or other people that you don't want to be bothered with. But just imagine that. You go to work, public transportation, you're constantly always around other people. You're around those people more than you actually know, like your family and your friends. And your flatmates stink, they don't clean up after themselves. A lot of times, The roommate situation is just a shit show.
人在打，不如自己有把伞。
This blogger, originally an actor, later switched careers and works as a host on an online platform because there were no roles to play.
90后北漂7年。
How much money has the post-90s generation saved after living in Beijing for 7 years? I have been in Beijing for 7 years since I graduated from the Film Academy. When I first came to Beijing, I had only $550 in my hand, and I lived in a small bungalow worth $120. After paying the rent, I had $400 left. At that time, I went to various major film crews for interviews and submitted my resume every day. I submitted 50 resumes in 20 days, but
Keep in mind, I always like how these singles over there in China cook their food. They made their little solo meals quick and easy. And it's like more Americans need to do that here too. Instead of relying on, DoorDash and all that. It's like Americans waste so much money on being lazy that they could be putting that money towards other things.
was not accepted for any interview. I only had $50 left and the rent had to be paid soon. I hadn't earned a penny. I felt really desperate at the time. Life was not as good as I had imagined in university. Just when I was at a loss, I got my first role in a play in Beijing, playing the brother of the leading actress, which relieved my urgent needs. Later, I got some roles and saved some money. Until the outbreak of the 2019 epidemic, I rarely received any acting jobs,
And see, me being in that industry too, I know all about it. In 2020, I didn't get any calls for any kind of work, any kind of that gig work. And yet I'm paying union dues. I'm still paying union dues, and there's not really a lot of work going on around. So it's important not to rely on that as your primary work. So luckily I have healthcare as a background, and then I have the other entertainment stuff on the side.
The Wind Rises in Luoyang was the last acting job I received. There were no more TV dramas to shoot, and I had spent almost all the money I had saved in 1 year. Later, my father left us because of the epidemic, and I became the only pillar of the family.
I don't understand that part of the video. Your father left because of the epidemic. It's not very clear, but at least he learned how to cook for himself. And this is what a lot of people fail to do on their own now. A lot of people in their 30s, even up to 40, are still living at home. And especially the women, they don't even know how to boil water. It's sad.
So I couldn't sit there and wait for death anymore, so I chose to change my career and become a live streamer. I worked during the day, shot short videos at night, and worked part-time on weekends. I did 3 jobs at the same time. 3 years later, I paid off my debts and had a 6-figure savings, but I am further and further away from my dream.
却离自己的梦想越来越远了。
Have you ever lived on the 3rd floor below ground level in a basement? Hello everyone, I'm Dong, a delivery boy born in the 1990s who has no money, no house, and no car, and lives in Beijing.
Yeah, that's pretty bad if you're in your 30s and you don't have none of that. Let alone a car. I mean, you're forgiven for not having a house. But you live in a major city, so you could get away with not having a car. But when it comes to the ladies and finding a potential mate, they're going to look down on him because of that.
I have been in Beijing for 7 years. The first thing I did when I arrived in Beijing was to find a place to live. I can't remember how many times I moved, but I was exhausted every time. Live on the 3rd floor underground, living with the car every day.
3rd floor underground? So he must be way down in like a dungeon. Ah, that's depressing, man. That sucks.
There is an underground garage next to that room. It's not so bad in the winter as it's neither too cold nor too hot inside. It's too hot in the summer. When it was the hottest, we put 2 fans inside to blow the air, and I still sweated like that for about a year. If I lived there any longer, my health would collapse. It's very difficult to find a suitable living space in Beijing. The price of the place with a good location is high, and the location of a cheap one is not good, so moving is commonplace.
So you're just bouncing around from one place to another. That sucks too. And moving gets expensive too.
Beijingers can hardly survive in Beijing. Let me tell you, it may be hard for friends from other provinces to believe that most Beijing families are ordinary and common. Perhaps many Beijingers are still struggling to make ends meet. If people from Beijing go looking for jobs, they may not even be able to find one because many companies don't want people from Beijing at all. If the leader of this company happens to be from Beijing, he may be willing to give Beijingers some opportunities.
You know, that's funny. That's like back here in America. Most large employers would prefer to hire people outside of America, meaning people that didn't grow up in America, because where I'm at in America, the United States, people have a reputation for complaining about everything, and it's just not good.
But as long as the leader is not from Beijing, an additional condition for most interviews is that they do not want Beijingers. You want to ask him why? The leader tells you this because you Beijingers are lazy.
And I know why he's saying that. You want to know why? Because Beijing is the capital city. It's large, which means there's a lot of millennials that grew up around technology, and they're just laying around on their phones all day playing video games, streaming. Like, they rather stream than get their hands dirty and do hard work. That's what he's saying. Like, they're not willing to work hard for an employer, but they're willing to work hard enjoying their own hobbies instead of building productivity.
You have a house and a land, but you don't have the spirit of hard work, and your parents have a pension, so you don't need to work at all.
Kind of like raising a trust fund family. Like, your parents are so well off, they've had good jobs from the time you were crawling all the way up to adulthood. So you really don't have to work hard like them. And a lot of those parents pretty much built them lives for those children, so then they don't have to work as hard as they did. I mean, I understand it, but then some people are hard on their parents. Like, my money is not for you. I'm not going to give all my money to you. You need to earn your own money. You need to pretty much build your own living. You're not just going to live off of me because I got the money. So it makes sense.
The jobs we have here are only suitable for Beijing drifters who have come to Beijing, live in rental apartments, and need to make a living. They are willing to work overtime and endure hardships.
Which is why they moved there in the first place. Because if they didn't want to make a better living for themselves, they wouldn't have never moved there to begin with, right?
In Beijing, as for the companies that do not hire Beijingers, they are indeed quite a lot.
And see, you need more than just a college degree. You have a master's degree, but nobody wants to hire you because of where you're from. So you still have to compete. A master's degree is not going to save you from competition. And that's the problem. It's nothing. We're all competing. Everything is competitive. You move to San Francisco, LA, New York, you're going to have to compete with all the other people that were there before you. And you pretty much understand this by now. And this is pretty much the lifestyle you're going to live if you're going to be a dink, strong, independent, and don't depend on nobody. This is Kylie Vale. Peace.